Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. I'm Tanis Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Jakowski from My Holistic Self. How's it going, Jen?
It is going well. How about you?
Good, thanks. Good. And we have a special guest for you today, Anthony Kilner. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you on.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And how are you today?
I'm good. It's drizzly here in Melbourne at the moment. First half decent rain we've had in a very long time, and the grass on my property is starting to grow, so I'm very happy.
Oh yeah.
Nice. I would like to see the grass on my property. We still have a bit of snow here. But it is kind of drizzly too. It's like in that sort of in-between weather for us here. So
yeah. It's been like a cloud of fog out the window all day.
Well, we're just coming into autumn now, so we've had possibly one of the driest summers that I can remember being here on this property. And it's up north. We've had some extreme rain events, and there's been a lot of fires going on. So actually very happy that we've got through this fire season so far, and I'm looking to touch wood that we haven't been hit here. Friends of ours more recently have had flames right up to their house doors and stuff, and it's sort of really crazy, this whole weather scenario for us. It just, we've had to fill our water tanks to be able to water the fruit, and the fruit hasn't grown as well as it normally would because it's not getting enough water. It's a really interesting, the joys of, well, I'll call it hobby farming. I won't call it farming, but hobby farming, where we grow a lot of our own food.
Awesome.
It's really tricky to balance when everything's so dry constantly, and you feel bad because you're not watering one thing to water something else because that's the food you want to eat.
Yeah, that's hard. It's a tricky year. Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a farmer as a general rule, full stop. Especially here in Australia. I'm not sure what it's like over there, but here we've had some crazy weather conditions, really crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of weather, we should look at the space weather, and then we're going to hear all about Anthony. So let's take a look at the space weather for now. We've got the Schumann resonance, which is in around 31 today. As you can see, over the weekend, we had some big spikes and stuff in that Schumann. A little quieter with some little blurps here and there. And then when we look at the KP index, we did have some high readings here, which would have been 2 days ago. And we had a little bit of an M-class solar flare today, which it's been really quiet. So this was a little bit of a blip that we haven't seen in a while. So that's kind of an interesting little weather day. Jen, what have we got in our transits?
So right now, as of the 14th, so we're kind of in the middle of the gate 36. The gate 36 is about the darkening of the light. This is the gate of crisis in the I Ching. And the energy of this gate moves us from the shadow of turbulence into the Sid here, the enlightened state of compassion through the gift of humanity. And so the energy that we're in right now is really asking us to take a look at our emotional and experiential frequency. The one that governs our relationship with crisis, with transformation, and emotional maturity. And so the energy that is showing up for us, that shadow of turbulence, is when we feel like everything is out of control. Whereas the wisdom energy is wisdom through experience. It's being able to be in a difficult experience and hold space for that. So if in this energy right now, you're feeling emotional volatility or kind of impulsiveness with your reactions, if there's some fear showing up around uncertainty, or, we sometimes will try to escape discomfort or those more dense emotions, we recognize that that's the shadow saying, you can't handle this. and then trying to get away from it. And so I think it's really important when we're looking at the shadow, the shadow is not our enemy, and the shadow is not here to tell us that we're failing. It's about the sensitivity that we're encountering around transformation. And it can help us when we recognize it to switch that frequency so that we can move into acceptance of imperfection and empathy for struggle, honesty around emotional challenges, and being able to go, yeah, this is hard, and holding space for that, right? So that we can have patience as things begin to unfold. And so we're in this energy until only for a couple more days. We're in this energy until the 18th, and then we're going to be switching into the gate 25. And the gate 25 is the gate of innocence. It's the gate of the spirit of self. This is moving us from the energy of constriction to the energy of universal love, right? So that shadow constriction, that siddhi universal love through the gift of acceptance. So we can see how these kind of go together. We're feeling this frequency. We're feeling this tightness or this chaotic energy that comes in. And then if we sit in that and we stay in it, we get the constriction, right? Where we feel like we're not able to move through the energy. We feel like we have to protect ourselves. Maybe we go into emotional numbness, things like that. And so, we recognize when, the mind is going, okay, I just have to stay guarded so that I'm not going to hurt. And again, both of these are looking at our relationship with these tougher emotions. And can I stay in those tougher emotions so that I can find peace in life's unpredictability, right? Where I can have compassion and trust in the unfolding of things. So, the energy we're in now and the energy that we're going into when we're moving from, you guys know I write on the back of my cards, from the siddhi of compassion into the siddhi of universal love. Like, we can see how those are very deeply connected, and the energy that it's trying to bring forward over the next couple weeks. Well, over the next week and a bit, because we're going to be in the 25 until I think Tuesday, which is why I wanted to do it now so that we got them both in this week.
Awesome. That's great.
This week.
Do we have a thought to contemplate this week? Or?
Oh my goodness, we do. I did write down. I just didn't even see them. Hold on.
While you're getting that, what I'll do is we'll just say hello to a few people. So hi, Nalani. Welcome. Hypnocity. And then we have Kaylee. Logo Pogo. Welcome. And Kiara. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I'm with you, Nalani. Be good to feel rested, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
These energies can really take a toll.
Mm-hmm. So for our energy right now through the 18th, the journal reflections or things that we can think about for that is, where do I resist emotional intensity or uncertainty? How do I respond when life feels chaotic? And how can I meet turbulence with greater presence? Really letting myself be in that energy. It's kind of the eye of the storm, right? How can I allow myself to be in the eye of it and be present with it? The affirmation to go with that is, I welcome life's experiences as teachers. I allow emotional depth to expand my understanding. Through every challenge, compassion grows within me. So I'm going to send that to you all there. That's for the 36. And then on, like I said, on the 18th, so in just a couple of days when we move into the 25, some of the reflections for that. Where has my heart closed in response to pain? And
That's a loaded one. For many.
Yeah. What would acceptance look like in this moment? And, where can I allow vulnerability to reopen connection? Okay. And the affirmation for the gate 25 is I allow my heart to remain open. I trust the sacred unfolding of life. Through acceptance, love flows freely within and around me.
Beautiful. There we are.
And there is that one for you all as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. That's great. Now, Anthony.
Yes.
Now that we've taken care of our usual business stuff, let's hear about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, I always often say it's hard to talk about me. However, I think to understand anybody, you have to hear their journey, and I guess that's part of what it is. I want to say, Jennifer, that when you were talking, because we've got the new moon coming up as well, and of course the new moon is the darkness coming into light, just makes perfect sense with what you were saying. But when you were talking about opening your heart, all that sort of stuff, I just kept getting the word blessing, and it's a mixture between blessings and lessons, and they become blessings. And so I was just wrote that down. You know, it's something one of my mentors taught me a long time ago, that we can look at lessons in a negative way, or we can look at them and go, what can I learn? How can I grow? How can I feel into this? How can I work with it without fighting it? And then it becomes a blessing, because that helps us to move through it. So just thought I'd add that in there, because it just was popping into my head while you were talking. So a little about me. So I am a father of 3. I've got 2 pretty gorgeous grandkids that are fairly newbies. The last one's only about 6 months old. Both of them are going to create havoc on this earth, and I start looking at their numbers and their kin numbers. I work with the Mayan calendar, the dream spell. So I work with those kind of numbers on top of numerology, on top of other bits and pieces. So I'm very blessed with where I am. I'm on a beautiful small acreage property that I just love, full of animals. And for, a lot of people have an interest in Australian animals like wallabies and echidnas and koalas and things like that. Well, we don't have koalas where I am. However, we have I'm not going to say rare species, but they're not big numbers in there, a black wallaby. We do have our kangaroos that move through. We had an echidna the other day in the heat walk up. We have water all over the place around here for the animals. So we had an echidna walk up, and I got photos of him drinking from the water bowl. And we have deer, and we have all these other things that are wandering around our property, and including, the resident snakes and lizards and all that sort of stuff. That's all part of the fun. So very blessed. For me, I grew up in a very poor family, definitely in one of the poorer suburbs of Melbourne, and just basically managed to get myself through life, end up getting a job. I struggle with schooling because I struggle to read, which is really funny because I'm an editor of a magazine and a writer. And we'll talk about that later. So I have a situation where I can read a manual, or I can read something technical, and it doesn't sit. It's like I'm reading a blank screen, and yet I can look at something and work out how to go about fixing it somehow, as a general rule. So that ended up seeing me become a mechanic, and then sort of my passion was always I wanted to write. Always wanted to write. And back in the day, here in Melbourne, when I think I would have been about 13, I started work on my first book, which was called Tow Truck, because we had tow truck wars going on in Melbourne. And it might sound really silly, but it's at that age, I wasn't really into the whole romantic side of life. So I had to talk to my older sister and say, what happens when 2 people want to do this and do that, so that I could include it in the book, because at 13 I wasn't there. So it wasn't until I was about 30 that I'd been running a workshop where most of my clients were women, and most of them were over the age of 65. And I attracted all these women because when they realized I was honest, and explain stuff, it just kept bringing more and more of the same women, back in. And that's when I realized, there's a lot of not so good people out there in that field. And my boss was good because he just said, I just want to get a good reputation. So, you got to do what you've got to do to make sure that happens. And so it was quite enjoyable. So a lot of these older ladies would come in and, get their car serviced, and you try and explain, well, this is why that had to happen. Here's the brakes, here's the oil seals, here's the this and that. And they're going, oh, no, we trust you, it's okay. And a lot of them would touch you on the hand and go, it's okay, love, I don't need to know this stuff. And that used to drive me insane. But it was a good space to be in. And then I saw a job come up for an editorial assistant for a full drive magazine, one of the biggest in Australia. And I managed to get that job, and that fueled my passion for travel, and still have a passion for travel now, for getting out into really remote areas of Australia, and being able to go, 5, 6, 7 days without a shower because all you've got is a little water container and you've got to just deal with that. Love desert country. I grew up with an Aboriginal family, so a lot of strong connections in that space as well. And so that whole practical side of my nature, even though I'm a Saggy and I do love my travel, there's always that practical side. And so that job got me traveling around the planet to all sorts of different places, including America, and go full driving at Moab, like the absolute pinnacle of full driving over there. Traveling around through Spain, over to France and different places. And so those two passions, that full driving, being on the land, being respectful of land, and then being able to sort of bring that back and write about that was an amazing job. So I've been doing that for over 30 years now, and still doing a little bit of it as a photographer as well, because that's all part of what I do. I recently was out at a place in central Victoria called Suicide Rock, of all places. And it's this most amazing rock formation in the middle of everything that's totally flat. And, it was just amazing. So we had this great there. So that was just, a good time, easy, got the cover photos that I was asked to do. And again, I get to travel and just be out in the bush, which is something I love. And hence why we live here. But so that practicality is what I bring to my mediumship, my spirituality, my way of living, and my choices in life. And that's always been really cool. Like people will rock up in my driveway and they'll have a flat tire and I can go out and I sort it for them, and it's no big deal. And then, another person rock up and they've got an overheating radiator. So I look at that and bring them inside, sit them down and say, okay, so there's a whole lot of emotional stuff happening with you at the moment. You're getting overheated, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this. And they look at you and go, how did you know all that? And I said, your car just told me. So
I love that.
That's awesome.
That's my world. Everything happens for a reason. And so, being able to do that though for my clients while I'm actually here and they see it and it's no big deal. It's just, oh yeah, I've got the tools, I've got this, I've got that, just jack it up, do this, do that. And if it's terminal, then, we can get a tow truck. But it's something very unusual for most people. And I'm not necessarily what I'd call your typical medium or psychic, because I embrace so much of everything that's around me. Like I said earlier, the numerology, the dream spell, all this stuff comes into it. And my connection with spirit is something that I love, and I'm very, 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 very grateful for in that space. So that's it.
And you wrote a book about the everyday spiritual stuff.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah. So that's so the book's called Practical Mediumship, funnily enough. A guide to understanding psychics, mediums, dreams, objective and subjective information. And so the idea behind the book was to explain all of that stuff in a really easy to read fashion for people, because you know the field, it can get really crazy and people go all too deep and, you know, we're channeling and we're doing this and we're doing that. And, you know, the average mum and dad, it either scares them or it puts them off, and so they don't get it. And so that was where the book came from. That was my second book. And the idea is I broke it up into chapters. So when people are talking to me and they're telling me about either a dream experience, an astral experience, and they are two very different things, and then the subjective objective side of it. So for people that might not understand my terminology, objective is what it is. You've got a sore right knee, you've got a sore right knee, that's objective. The subjective side of that says you are struggling with your ability to move forward in a very comfortable, relaxed manner. And so that's where the knee is that movement and allows that movement to go forward. And so they go sort of hand in hand in how that works. So I ended up writing this book with all that information, how mediums work, psychics work, what are the chakras, what are the energy fields, how do they work, dreams and astral, why are they different? Because that fascinates most people. And then I put a whole series of chapters together about the subjectiveness and dream interpretation for a house, for a car, for transport, for colour. And the colour was really interesting. You know, when I was researching colour, I've got books back into the 1800s where they only talk about, you know, the top, say, 10 colours. You know, your blue, your purple, your gold, your silver, your white, your black, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, this is crazy. So I did all this research on colour and I couldn't find out more than those normal colours. So I sat down with my spirit team and said, all right, I've got to write a whole chapter on colour here. Let's talk about what that actually is. Because in 2015, I think I wrote it or something like that, I can't remember. There's all these other colours. So there's fluoro colours, there's life colours, there's different kinds of greens, different types of this. And I just put it all down, and then Spirit was helping me get all the meanings for all of those. And then, of course, that translated into all the food colours. And so how they impact your body. So, you know, there's all chapters upon chapters upon chapters. And so it's the idea is to help people, instead of just a pure dream interpretation book, is something that comes out that is, again, more practical, more real life. And that's when I live in. And so when I'm talking to people, you know, and they're telling me what's been going on, you know, like the toilets flushing and not flushing properly and backing up and all the rest of it, and you look at them and go, oh, so you've got a few health issues at the moment, you know, because you've got a bit of a build-up of stuff that's not coming out properly. And so, you know, they'll go, yeah, how did you know that? You know, well, I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing anything, and your toilet's telling me you've got a problem. And so that's sort of how I work, and I love it. It's so much fun to do. And when people start to get their heads around it, then they realize that everything in life, if you take notice of it at that point in time specifically, has meaning, because the universe is giving us meaning.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about that is, you know, I lived in India for 3 months working at the Dalai Lama's temple and various places where I did volunteer work while I was there. And every day I'd say to Spirit, I'd like a sign of how my day is going to work, because I was living on the side of a hill below the temple by myself. And I'm just thinking, you know, every day I'd like a sign. And so sometimes I'd wake up and I'd walk out and there'd be a cow lying across my path, because I had this little path that I had to walk along to get to the temple. And there'd be a cow lying there, and the colour of the cow would dictate then what was going on in my life that day. Other days you'd walk out and a butterfly would come and land on my hand or something like that. And so that would be that day. Then there'd be other days where, I'm not sure what you guys are like with spiders, that there was one spider that I came home to that basically a standard colander, I had to put the colander over the body of the spider and then poke the legs in, and then slide a piece of paper in and take it outside and put it outside. And I think the poor neighbours below me must have thought there was some sort of weird stuff going on, because I found scorpions and other spiders and I'd put them all outside and they'd all go down the stairs.
Oh my.
I don't know what they thought of that. But, you know, so there was all those sorts of things. And even on, let's say, the darker side of looking at that part of life, you know, sometimes you get messages that aren't as nice and they're a warning. And for people that maybe have been over to India and seen what sort of happens around, unfortunately, the slum areas and whatever, dogs tend to go rampant at night. During the day, they're the most friendly things ever. And so every day I'd walk along and there would be a pack of dogs that would all come up and they'd wag their tails and they'd say good morning to me, and I'd talk to them and keep going. And then one night I was coming back from a sound healing workshop that I'd been doing that was run over a long time. And I heard the dogs and I heard them coming. I thought, that's a bit weird. What's the warning here? Because I'm walking home in the dark with a little torch to see where I'm going. Anyway, the dogs came racing out of the dark. And I just said to them, in this really arrogant voice, what the hell are you doing? And they all just stopped. And then one of them at the front recognized me, and then I went, oh, okay, he's okay. And then they took off. And I took that as a warning that in the spaces that I'm in and where I'm walking around at night in places that possibly I shouldn't, I need to have a bit of energy about me that will keep me safe. And so, I found myself in a situation not long after that where I knew where I was staying and where I wanted to go. This is in Old Delhi at this point. And so I went, I want to go to those shops. If I just head that direction, I'll get there. I'm not going to try and hire anyone and walk. And so I ended up following this cart thing through all these buildings, and then the cart disappeared, and then it was a bike, and then it was wide enough just for a walk path. And I'm walking through and I'm looking around, and it's literally hundreds of units all built on top of each other that you can't really even see the sun, and there's people in there looking at this, white person walking through the middle of their housing estate. And I just went, you know what, I'm here now. What did the dogs teach me? Confidence. And so I walked through with confidence. And the funny thing was, when I came out the other side, the shopping centre I wanted to go to was just across the road. And that's a whole nother challenge, getting across the road in India.
That. Mm-hmm.
It is yeah. Pretty amazing. So that's the sort of life I live. I live in that space. I enjoy what I do. I love working with spirit. I love working with sound and energy, and I use divining rods to do an energetic system that I devised here, based on what I learned over in India, basically, that I call core issue vibrational healing. And that involves measuring every layer of a person's auric field, and then being able to sit down with them and with just a picture and the measurements. And I do this with a big ruler so they can actually see it themselves. It's not me I can walk up and go, oh yeah, your chakra's over here, it's a bit floppy, that's that. And I'll tell you a funny story about that in a minute. And so
floppy chakras.
Look, I do have a pretty wicked sense of humour, and it's very Australian sense of humour, so just be ready for it. But I was doing a night where I was measuring people's auric fields, because we were talking about breath work and sound and all the rest of it, and I was explaining to this group, there's about 50 odd people there, that I don't actually need the divining rods to show you. I can tell you by what I feel, what I see, how I do it. And somebody made a comment, oh, I'd like to see that. And I said, oh, fair enough, we'll get the next victim up, next person. And this lady jumps up and she says, all right, I'm there. So I said, okay, lights off. I'll close my eyes, do it in the dark. And I walked up to this person and I stopped right there. So my hands are right in front of her chest. And I said, your life force energy is really, really low. That's what I was measuring. Chi, yes. Life force, or in my world, a fuel tank energy. And they turned the light back on, and I was right there, millimeters away. And the first thing she said was, well, you could have kept going. And it's like, no, we don't do that. So,
family show.
Yeah, exactly. It's more than that, it's a bit of ethics in there. But the whole group then burst into laughter, and of course then they realized that this is real, and that energy is a real thing. And so core issue vibrational healing was designed around measuring the auric field front and back, to get a diagram of distances, and then I sit down and I explain to them what's inverted, what's left, what's right, what's doing well, all the rest of it. And then we get into the core issue of that, and we say, right, So this is doing this works with the endocrine system of your physical body. So there could be problems here. And I don't use mediumship in that space, and I try and refrain from even trying to work on a clairsentient level, because the idea is you get the people to talk about what's going on. So you tell them all the things that will be connected to and why, and yes, there is some feel in that, and based on experience as well. And then they can say, oh, yeah, I've been having that problem, or, yeah, I've had this stomach issue for a while and I haven't been able to work out what to do. And, yes, I've been getting headaches and blah, blah, blah. And so then once we've established all that, the deeper things will come out. And so then they might have been abused as a child. There could have been a trauma. There could have been this, there could have been that. And so we start talking about that in detail, because yes, while I could call myself a qualified counsellor, I've done a lot of counselling work and training. I choose not to, because I can't say what I want to say. And so when we sit there and we connect, and I'll say to them, okay, so you're holding on to this in this part of your body. This happened when you were between the age of 10 and 13. What happened then? And they have to think back, and then you see the energy just light up. And they go, oh, that's when that happened. Okay, let's talk about that. And so what happens is, when you're working with the energy, you get the mind, body, and energy to work together. So not mind, body, spirit in that traditional sense. Bearing in mind, I'm doing this to people that are skeptical about energy and all that sort of stuff. So I keep it as real as I can. And so then they realize, okay, so if I'm talking about it, then I can start releasing it, and I don't have to take drugs, and I don't have to do this, and I don't have to do that. That's their choice to go off, and I don't tell them to do that. I just help them to understand why they're in that space. And so one of the things that spirits really helped me out with that one is a lot to do with energy and mind blockers, and even, I'll say it just very quickly, vaccinations, how they disconnect us from the earth. And so I've done a lot of work to reconnect people back into their earth star, or their earth chakra, depending on terminology. And the difference it's made in their lives is huge. And so this is a trademarked modality that I created after I came back from India. And so the advantage of that for people is they don't really have to do too much other than be open and think about the problems. And so that's to that point. Then we get them on the bed, and we use specific crystals around their body, Tibetan bowls around their body. I've got 2 gongs that I use as well. Because you can't reach the whole auric field if you're trying to shake things loose. And so the gongs are my shakedown tool. And so I'm sort of use those, and then rebalance everything, reconnect everything. The divining rods and pendulum that I use will actually tell me whether they've been on, let's say if we're talking about, say, a COVID jab specifically, how many they've had. All right, if they've on beta blockers, what that's like and where that's coming through. And I don't tell them that until we sit down afterwards, and after we've done all the remeasurement, all the sound work, everything else. And then I sit down and say, look, this is telling me you've either had that, or you're on that because of this, and this is the connection there. And they just sit back and go, oh, and then they try and justify why they got it. And I'm going, I'm not interested. There's no judgment here. This is the effect of what this is doing to you. And, one lady said to me, oh, but I've been to a naturopath and they've cleared it out of my system. And I said, well, they might have cleared it out of your system, but the vibration is still in your body, in your energy field. You've got to clear that as well. It's a multi-pronged thing that you need to do. And so, yeah, and things like, I'll follow that up 3 days later with every client and talk to them, send them a message, say how you're traveling, all that sort of stuff. Things I've noticed is 9 times out of 10, people will walk away, and within the next 12 to 14 hours, they will have diarrhea, because it's clearing out of the system. Yeah. Their vision is sharper. So by the end of the session, they'll be looking outside, and they won't be able to, you can see them, and they're not sure what they're looking at. And outside my window, just in front of me where I'm sitting, I've got all sorts of trees and greens and blue sky and all that sort of stuff. And they're looking out there and goes, it's sharper, isn't it? It's greener and it's more. And they look at me and go, wow, I didn't think it would be that much of a change, and that's because their mind body energy is aligned the way it's supposed to be, and they've got better clarity. So I created that, and I love doing that. It takes between 2 and 2.5 hours a session to get them into that space. And it's something that I've been doing work with people overseas as well, and having very, very good results, or not even overseas, in other parts of the country. It's all can be done. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey into that space, and creating it and doing something very, very different. And probably one of my worst cases was a person that they'd had 7 jabs. Her husband came home and she was writing a suicide note, and he just said to her, "You call Anthony now, you go and see him." And she came in, and I just was looking at her energy, and I was going, oh my gosh, because when energy gets inverted, it creates negativity and forms even more negativity. So when the chakra, in my way of seeing, is drawing energy in, when it's inverted, it's pushing it out. And when it pushes it out in such a negative way, then the person gets super negative. And that's when I know somebody's in a bit of trouble, when, apart from what I feel when I'm working with them, is that negativity is because the energy's pushing energy away from them, not drawing energy in to help them. And it's not earthed properly. So, I have different views on earth grounding through feet and earth grounding through the earth star on the chakric energy level. And so, yeah, it's she came in, and I think we did one session, and we did a follow-up every 3 weeks for about 3 months. And I saw her just recently, and she was just like a whole new person. She was bubbly, and she was happy, and she was looking at how she can change her life. So that's the reward I get for that kind of putting that kind of effort in. And for me, if somebody walks away from my place and at a meeting with me and just going, "Oh wow, I feel so much better," even though I'm blunt, I don't hide things from a lot of people. It's what is what is. And if it's couched the right way, and you can say it from an empathy level, then it comes from that heart space. Yeah, I do a lot of work in the higher heart, but empathy from the heart space. And so, yeah, that's the reward. I think is really, not that we need one, but that's the reward. Is people can walk away, and you see them a month later, 6 months later. And it's not something like, this system is not designed to come in every week and do it. It's just not. I've got clients, I've been doing this for a while, like 15 years now. It started before I went to India, and I was in India in 2010. And, I have clients just ring me up and say, "Hey, Anthony, I just want to come in, and I just want the full treatment again." And so we do the full thing again. And then others will come back, 6 months later and say, "I just feel like something's not quite right." And they walk in, I go, "Oh yeah, that's not right. That's not right. Let's just balance that out." And off we go again. Yeah. And that's how it works. So I don't ever tell my clients, "Oh, you need to come back in a week's time. You need to do this. You need to do that." That's not how I work. It's, let's work through it. You got a problem, you come talk, and we sort it from there.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I do mine as well. And Jen as well, I think, with your stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised. You both come from your heart space pretty strongly. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, that's a bit about my life.
Yeah. So how did you end up on or creating Supernal Magazine? And tell us a little bit about that piece.
Okay, so Supernal Magazine Australia, Spirit's always been at me to write for them. And so, that's where practical mediumship came from. I've written a book. The first book was all about setting up and working a spiritual business from home. And that's out of print now. So that did really well. It's just available on Amazon, I think, still. But so they've always wanted me to write. And I've always had a passion for writing, even though I have this sort of form of dyslexia thing. And Supernal came about, and they're saying, "Come on, we want you to do a magazine. You've worked in magazines for 30 years. You've got your training. You know what it is to be a good editor. You've got to get there and do this." And so I had one, I'm not going to call it a near-death experience. However, it was certainly potentially life-changing. And then I had a second one when I was off-road racing. So being mechanic, full drive magazine boy, I put a very, very big engine into a small Nissan Patrol, modified fairly heavily, not crazy, still streetable, and went off and did off-road events here in Australia. And so that was all good until we got caught in one of the major river crossings we were doing, and a guy rocked up with an illegal exhaust, pumped my car full of carbon dioxide, and got to a point, even though I was in full race harness, helmet, whatever, I managed to somehow switch the engine off. I couldn't get into gear. I couldn't even hold the steering wheel, which was right here in front of me. I just couldn't find it in my space. And I've got my spirit people sitting in the back seat saying, well, you'll be fine until my co-driver gets on the radio. He's on the other side of the river trying to winch me out. And he says to me, you know, maybe you should get out of the car. And my spirit people go, don't get out of the car. Don't get out of the car. Like, you're going to sit there, you're going to stay here, and you're going to wait. And so they eventually got that car moved, and they'd called the first aid people to say, we're going to need some oxygen here pretty quickly. And so we eventually got out. I managed to, with some help, all my hairs are standing up on my arms as I'm saying this, managed to get some help to actually get the engine going again, be able to control the winch, get myself where I needed to be. And I don't recall much of that. They got me out, put me on oxygen, and then they said, well, look, you know, we've got to take you back to base camp and you've got to be monitored. Because we're in the middle of the outback New South Wales, like, so really remote. Yeah. And so anyway, on the way back, and this is the spiritual part, this is the bit that absolutely blew me out of the water. I'm in the passenger seat of this car, and the guy's there, and he's not really saying much, and we're just driving all these outback roads, and an eagle came down and flew next to the car on my side. So close, in fact, that I could see all the beak and around the beak, and I've got all that memory in my head. And so it just literally just matched the speed of the car. And I really couldn't even say it. I can't even remember if I said to the guy, no, that's unusual. And then it flew off and up to the right, which meant that, okay, I'm meant for better things. I've got to go up there. And so that was probably the big major sort of turning point. But anyway, me being me, and a bit stubborn at times, I didn't do anything about it straight away. And then one of my jobs as a freelance photojournalist was working in the caravan industry, and I'd organised a brand new caravan, you know, about $150,000-$60,000 worth of equipment. I'd had a guy and a girl set up to come with me as my talent, and the girl pulled out the day before, then the guy pulled out that morning, and I still had to do the shoot. So I just, you know, heading down what we've got, the Hume Highway, one of the major highways between Melbourne and Sydney. Beautiful, beautiful, clear blue day. No wind, no anything else, just driving along, sitting at about 95 in 100 zone. So not even being silly, just cruising. And Spirit said to me, you're going to lose this, be ready. And just as we went over a rise, the caravan decided to go out of control, started spinning like this. And I remember the caravan's trying to pass me, and I'm sideways with the caravan like that going down the road. And I looked over down back behind me, and there's this beautiful Ford XA Falcon that had been restored. There was a Monaro behind that Holden, and obviously going to some sort of car show. And I'm looking at it going, oh, that's my XA, that's my favorite coupe. And, you know, I want one of them. And I'm looking at that, and then I'm coming back the other way, and then coming back this way, and eventually managed to get it all under control. I've been driving for a very long time professionally, so managed to get it under control, pulled up on the side of the road, rang the editor, told him what had gone on, rang the van company and said, you've got to come pick this van up, I can't tow it with this vehicle, and took the vehicle back to the vehicle company. And that was the major point. That was in about this early December 2018. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who I call Purple Jane, who works and writes with the magazine. And she said, well, you know, Anthony, you've been putting off this magazine for a long time. I think it's time you bit the bullet and did it. And so by the end of that month, Supernal was registered as a company. The business name was done, Supernal Media, and then the magazine concept was done. By March, we had our first issue out in 2019. We had people from all over Australia and from South Africa all wanting to write for me. We're all doing it as passion, so writers don't get paid. And then we went monthly to start with, and then COVID hit, so we stayed monthly because I had nothing else to do, couldn't go anywhere. Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world, and then we got to after COVID, and I said, well, I've got to earn some money, so we're going to go bi-monthly, and so we've been going bi-monthly ever since, and we've just done issue 59. So we've been around for a while now, and creating a bigger global audience as well. And so our dream was always to make it as free as we possibly could for everybody to read, because it's all about a whole range of different topics, and we spend one issue on each topic. And so the latest issue that's available at the moment is all about the sacredness of death. And I think you both met Brie Lafferty through Michael. She's actually written a beautiful story about her near-death experience and what sent her down the path of becoming a death doula and all that sort of stuff. So we actually have an international flavour been going through as we've grown. And so we have the latest issue is available free online for people, and then once the next issue comes out, it gets locked away and people pay a small fee to access all the back issues and our videos and podcasts and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
It's been a passion of writing, learning, realizing that there's so much I still don't know, and that I'm not going to say it scares me, because it doesn't. It scares me in the fact that I've lived a very extraordinary life, and one that's not been always pretty or beautiful or nice. And and I get to my age now, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, there's still so much to learn. There's still so much to tap into, and there's so many beautiful people to meet and countries to go to, and that's probably the Sag in me coming out. But it's just crazy that where we get to an age where I'm working probably harder now than I have in a long time, for less money, because I'm doing what I want to do rather than what I'm being told to do and work in a system. So yeah, it's just, the magazine's really highlighted that what I thought I knew is just a very, very small amount compared to what is out there in the real world.
Well, and I think that's really a statement for the spiritual journey in general. I think you go along on a spiritual journey, and there's stuff that comes in, and you learn about yourself, and you learn about the concepts and all of that stuff. And then all of a sudden you realize you've done all that learning and you don't really know anything. So it's like another stage, I think, in sort of your development, right?
No, I agree. I mean, I spent most of my life up to about 30 living on what we might say the dark side, and living in that dark side. And that in itself was because I never knew there was a light side. And so when I started my spiritual journey around 30, I realized, hang on, there is a light side there. And I'm not going to say the dark was bad, because the light can be bad. It's about understanding how those two come together, and you create your own heart space based around that. And that becomes then the blessing that we were talking about at the start, is there's so much to be grateful for. And even though life gets you down and you can fall back into the negative aspects of life, me, with the way I spent most of my younger life, was always in that defensive, aggressive mode. And now it's like, I don't really care. If you want to be that way, go away. I'm not interested.
It's their stuff.
I mean, look, I did an interview with a lady in England recently, and she made a comment there that really touched my soul in a space. And the higher the vibe, the smaller the tribe. And I thought about that, and I thought, I don't need people around me. I don't. I've got spirit. I've got my soul, my higher self, access to all my past, present lives, concurrent. I believe in quantum consciousness and concurrent. So I've got all that there. And so I've often found myself over the years quite happy to go and sit by a river somewhere, not even fish, just sit there, maybe have a couple of drinks. Back when I smoked, you know, a couple of smokes, light a fire, and just chill. And I don't need people to talk to, and I don't need stuff, because I can just sit there and be. And I think when you take the negative out of that and you can just sit there and be, life just flows.
Yeah.
And yeah, you make your choices where you want to go from there, because it's all about those choices, really. So yeah, so that's really a snapshot of a chunk of my life.
Awesome. And so do you work a lot as a medium now as well? You said you do dems, which are like demonstrations and stuff of doing that kind of work. How many of those do you? We've got some nice comments here, actually.
Thank you.
Nalani is saying the higher the vibe, the smaller the tribe. She loves that. Mm-hmm. And the more I learn, the less I know. So,
yeah, it's tricky in that space. So the medium aspect of what I do. So I'm known here through a TV show called Chronicles X as the traveling medium, and there's about 30 episodes that are airing on our local community station out here in Melbourne and into South Australia. And I've got some of them on my website, but they're all the early ones, and I'm waiting for them to update everything so I can put all the latest ones on. But so I've been working, learning, and still learning mediumship for the last 30 years. And you know, to me, like we said earlier, to me, mediumship is about the healing aspect that you bring between the physical and the spiritual world. And that's really all mediumship is for me. I don't go out to talk about where their futures are going. I don't go out to talk, you know, if the spirit's there and they want to talk, I bring them through. And I'm respectful about that. I'm one of the very few mediums that, although a few others are now following, I guess, my style, if I want to call it that. That's a bit egocentric and probably won't. But I'm one of the few mediums that's got up on platform in the churches. I've done a lot of work in the spiritual churches around Melbourne. And I will talk about children. So mediumship to me, and we'll probably go into this if you want to, about difference between physical mediumship, mental mediumship, and physical phenomena, because they're all very different things, but they're all connected. And so I've done physical mediumship for a long time, and in that is your only role is to help people in the spirit world. That's it. There's no, you do the disciplines, you do the work, you get reward by the feelings that you get when you allow a spirit being to channel through you that has been stuck in a horrible situation in the spirit world, and they're using your body to learn and grow and then make choices. So that's you know, I have a problem, and I'll be honest, I have a problem with anyone that says, oh, you know, I went to this person's place and I moved that spirit on and I sent them to the light and I did this and I did that. And as soon as somebody says that to me, I just switch off. We can't, and I say we can't it's not ideal. There is a way that you can move a spirit into the light, and very few people know how to do it. I've never come across anyone that does it the way I was taught by spirit. And it's not something I want to do, right? Because it's too easy to get to that point, and you don't want to come back either, right? Because it's done with love. It's not done with fear or through fear. And so the next step is then you empower the spirit to make a choice to be there or not be there. Yeah. And that comes from doing things like, I talk about the show Medium that came out of America, and the other one which was with the lady, what was it called? It wasn't Medium, it was another one where James Van Praagh actually was the spiritual director behind it. Okay. It'll pop up to me in a minute. I can see her, Jessica Love Hewitt, I think it was. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you've seen it. So anyway, it's a show that was on TV. But James Van Praagh, very famous medium, he was the one that was the spiritual director. And what happened was, at the start of the show, there's always something nasty happening. And then as the show progressed, the spirit got connection with her and then grew to then make choices and chooses to leave. And that's probably the most accurate interpretation of what physical mediumship is like without the Hollywood hype. And so the way it's, sorry?
Hollywood.
Exactly. Exactly. Been there, LA was pretty interesting. So the thing is, that's a fairly good description for how physical mediumship works, except that it's missing a point. And the point is you are there purely and simply to help the spirit. So you're not there to throw a cross at them, holy water, any of this stuff. You're there to make connections, to help that spirit to make a choice. And because if they're stuck, they haven't got the energy to become unstuck until someone listens to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm cutting out a lot of detail out of all of this. That's the very general. And things like when you're in real terms, I was in an outback pub where we were getting ready for one of these off-road races out of Broken Hill. And sorry for the picture I'm going to paint here, people. I was standing at the urinal and it had a wall to my left. And there was a head, and there was a guy standing there talking to me, and he said to me, I really miss my wife. And I said, is she out there in the crowd? And he said, yes. And I said, well, are you not talking to her? And he said, no, I just really miss my wife. And then he moved off. And so at that stage, I quickly finished, turned around the corner, and because it was a long corridor down to where the room was, and there was no one there. And so when I stopped and thought about it, I went, so he was looking for some help. So I was able then to finish up in there, find myself a quiet space, call in my team to go and work with his team to help him. Now, how that worked after that, I'm not sure. But those kind of things happen in real life all the time. Well, they certainly have to me. Things don't happen in graveyards the way most spirits go to where there's energy that they can absorb and live through. And so like supermarkets, for example, they're really funny. I love, when I started my spiritual, I couldn't go to a football match, I couldn't go to a cricket match, I couldn't go into supermarkets without feeling absolutely smashed. So I learned lots of different techniques over the years to do that. And one of the funniest things was walking through the supermarket, and I've got a spirit standing next to me, and he's just jabbering away, and he goes, see that guy at the end there? He's wearing his wife's undies. And I just sit there going, now, why do I need to know that? And the spirit just laughs and disappears. A mate of mine who was also a medium, we would walk the streets and there'd be spirit people standing on corners, and you just talk to them and just help them. And, there's so much fun to be had in that space because spirit have a sense of humor. And it doesn't matter whether you might class the spirit as a bad or an evil spirit compared to a good spirit, they quite often have the same sense of humor. And possibly because my sense of humor is so crazily wicked that that he thought that was going to be the fun thing to say. And it's just stuff like that where the other funny thing, because my house is a bit of a portal in a way for spirit to come moving through. We have a bit of a passageway down the hall to the bedroom, and one night I've got up in the middle of the night and just walking down to get myself a drink of water, in my birthday suit. And as I sort of looked up, there's this lady standing there, and the first thing I did was cover myself up and go, what are you doing? And she just laughed and left. They're the sorts of, there's so much fun to be had out there. So in that mediumship aspect, I'm sort of gone off track a little bit. But going back to the traveling medium thing, we have a lot of fun on the show. And the producer of the show gets really Shirty with me when we go into a haunted location, and there's an old doll sitting there. I don't like porcelain dolls personally. Anyway, there's an old porcelain doll sitting there, and he'll say, "Now I want you to connect with the doll and the evil in the place." And I'm looking at him going, "There is none here. I'm not going to make it up for the camera." And he's going, "But I'm surely you can talk about it." I can talk about the doll and how much I think they're evil. But you know, I'm not going to make it up. And we go into another.
They can
room,
be a
all
little
this other
creepy.
Stuff happens. Yeah. We've got a lady here in South Australia, and that's her specialty, working with dolls that actually get up and move and all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, so that's a whole nother area. That's physical phenomena rather than mediumship. But yeah, we've had all sorts of fun sessions. Like we're driving up. It's an old place, no point in saying it's out in the bush. And we're driving up the road, and my friend Gary, he's a paranormal investigator and has been for a long time, and we work well together. And we're going up, and I'm going, "Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, Jack fell down," and you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's looking at me going, "What are you doing?" I said, "No, just this song's in my head." You know, we're going to a cemetery in the middle of the night. Like it was like 1 a.m. Anyway, we get there, and we're playing with different things and toys, as I call them. And the producer's there going, "Oh, Anthony, come on, what can you do?" And I said, "Look, I'm not really picking up on much, but I've got a few things." I said, "What about I get the divining rods out, I'm going to connect up with the person's name that I've got in my head, and we'll see if we can find them in the cemetery. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, just scrap that footage, you know." And so anyway, I got the song and say, "Right, I'm looking for Jack, and I'm looking for this, and so I'm following the rods, and they move me around." And I said to Gary, "I'll go and have a look at the front of that." And he goes around to the front of the actual tombstone, and fair enough, there's Jack. I can't remember his surname. His first name, Jack, was there. I went, "Oh, that's cool," you know. So we're going to go and do something else. Now I've got this other name, and we're going to go over there and find that person's name in the cemetery. So this is, you know, I'm thinking, well, at least something's working, you know, because when you're working and you're fully mic'd and you've got 3 cameras and it's night cameras, all the rest of it. Anyway, I've still got Jack and Jill, and then I've got this other name coming through, and I walk over and I said to Gary, "Look, what's on the other side of that grave? Because I feel it's right there." And he walked around. Next thing you know, and Gary's not a small bloke. I'm not a small bloke, but he's bigger than me. And he's gone knee deep into the grave and fallen backwards and started rolling down the hill. And of course, I start laughing because here's Gary rolling down the hill. And I mean, afterwards we thought about it, because what he's done is, as he's walked around, we didn't realize it was an unmarked grave that he was moving up to. And obviously rabbits had gone in there, and he didn't see that because we're in, you know, pitch black. And so he's gone down the hole, and so we just had to have. I just cracked up laughing, and luckily he didn't hurt himself, because he could have done a lot of damage. But he didn't hurt himself. And then we found that, and at that point it was like 2:00 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. And I said, "Well, I think it's time we actually pack up and go now. I don't want to go any further." But a lot of information came in, because the guy that I'd connected to in the spirit world was a thief and changed his name constantly while I kept getting different names. He fell off a cliff just up from where the cemetery is, and they didn't know what to do with him because he had no ID, so they buried him in an unmarked grave. And of course that's where we were in that space. So you know, again, you know, it's all, that's what I do as the traveling medium. You know, I've done work in America with people, done stuff online. I've been all over the place just doing what I do, because I don't go out to force anything to come through. I give what I get. I give it honestly, and it can't be any other way for me. You know, if I'm not getting something, I'm not. If I am, I'll talk about it, and I'll give detail about it. And so, so that's where the traveling medium comes in, from Chronicles X TV show, and that will be available online. I know I've got some episodes on my website, but they're the podcast episodes where we go out and we talk to all different people. And as the presenter, I'm probably, when it's all said and done, I'm the presenter that's got the broad base of knowledge. We've got Gary, who's big knowledge on the paranormal. in the first series, we're now working on series 2. Ellie was the female presenter who had the huge bubbly personality, was great. She's an actor, but really good at presenting and good at holding knowledge, whereas I don't hold on to much knowledge as such. And so little things that come up is, for example, wine tasting. Right? Now, I don't mind a glass or two of wine. I'm a red drinker when I can, and it's good to go. And so I was sitting down talking with the wine owner, the actually owner of the whole wine company and vineyard and all the rest of it. And we're talking about viticulture and all that sort of stuff, which I understand all of that. So we're walking through. When we're doing the podcast, though, we're talking about what tasting wine represents. And so, you hear people, they'll take a bit of wine, they'll say, there's cherry undertones, there's a chocolate base, there's this, there's that. And so what they're relying on is their memory, understanding based on their experience of those things. Sounds very much like working as a medium and a psychic, doesn't it? When you start talking about empathy, feeling, this reminds me of. Yeah. And so we had this really interesting discussion, and so the wine owner couldn't quite get his head around it. Once I explained it to him in more detail, he got it, and so that led to another discussion. And so that's in the podcast. It's this understanding that as mediums, just because I call myself a medium or a psychic, we're all mediums or psychics to some extent. Yes. It's just how much we've put into our training, our learning, and our education sort of thing. However, it's the memory of everything that allows you to have really strong empathy. So when you're connected with somebody and you're talking about, you're having this experience, I had this experience, the experiences are quite different, yet the emotions involved in that, which then come out in the way you talk and feel and express, taste, all part of it, comes through. So, again, that's the sort of stuff that I would bring to Chronicles X as the traveling medium. So we've sort of covered a little bit of psychic, mediumship, mental mediumship, which is basically everyday mediumship. It's mental because it's all up in your head, learning, all that sort of stuff. Physical mediumship is where you actually allow spirit to use your body, so it's channeled information for them to move on and grow. Very disciplined. Not many people can do it because they don't want to put in the hours to do it. And then there's physical phenomena, which is then things moving and going bump in the night and all that sort of stuff. And so that's how I sort of divide that sort of whole world up into that space.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we've had lots of experiences of those types of things talked about on here, for sure, by various people. And Jen and I have had our experiences as well. So it's always nice to hear.
You both have.
It's always nice to hear other people's experiences as well, and bring that all together. I can't believe the time has flown by, Anthony. We'll have to have you back again to share more information and more about how that works for you and all of that stuff. We'd love to have you back. And right now we usually do what we call home play. So we give people a card. And Jen, I saw you shuffling cards there.
I did that.
So let's give the audience the home play, and then I'll ask you for a final thought just after we finish that. And whatever you're working on right now, is there something you want to bring forward? So let's do the home play, and then we'll get to that.
Okay. So for our home play, again, fitting, ask for guidance.
Can't make this stuff up.
Every time. All right. So ask for guidance. You are not alone, grandchild. You are surrounded by guides and spirit helpers in the form of grandmothers, grandfathers, and beloved ancestors. They see you and know your sacred journey. These guides dwell in the mysterious realm of the sacred feminine, and your spirit lives with them. Your spirit walks with them and can access all of the wisdom that ever was and ever will be. You have all of the answers you will ever need, but your mind needs your spirit's help. Sit in silence, Visit the stillness of the sacred feminine and ask your spirit for help. Consult your wise ancestors. Commune with the grandmothers. Your guides know that your earth walk is challenging, for you came here knowing you would forget who you are. Your spirit helpers remember and are here to assist you. Ask them to give you clear signs when you ask questions or simple directions about how to go. They use the elusive language of the sacred feminine, gut feelings, intuition, inner knowing. Follow that hunch, listen to that quiet whisper, and turn back when you feel like an invisible wall has appeared before you. Spiritual guidance is yours for the asking. Then listen to what you receive. Your spirit helpers await your request.
Beautiful. And I think all of us will help with that. Or you can tap in yourself, because we all are capable.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Kaylee says that this was incredibly interesting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, lots more stories I could share. I did say when we first talked, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
First and foremost, whether it's been sitting out in the outback with Indigenous people, sitting in Melbourne with Indigenous people. I'm actually teaching myself. I play a lot of instruments. We haven't even got to that point yet.
Yeah.
Native American flute. My first flute is Native American that came from the Oregon flute store.
Nice.
There's a whole nother story behind how that happened. Anyway, thoughts for conclusion, or wrapping things up, is I just did the numbers for today. So I do numerology and the Mayan dream spell, that sort of stuff. But I just did a basic numbers for today. Comes to 11 is the day in the month for me, because it's 17th here in Australia. And so this will lead people into tomorrow. So 7 comes to 11. We've got a 2026 year 10. So what that tells me for everybody is to make change in your life, which is what the 10's bringing about. The change is not here yet. It is bringing about the change. And then for the 11, it's what I call the pillars of consciousness. So everyone's stepping up to those pillars, and they've got to step through them to get through the fear. So that's where the 11 comes in. Put all that together, and we end up with 3, 1, 1, 1. And so 3 is the alignment of mind, body, spirit. So for your people that are listening in, step through your fears, be open to change, and be aligned mind, body, spirit. And that's going to help you to move forward from this point forward. That's my little take on the numbers for today.
Beautiful. And so what have you got going on? Is there something that you wanted to, like we always say, what we have in terms of podcasts or whatever coming up? Is there something that you'd like to direct people to?
I would direct them mostly to Supernal to see what we're doing there. We've started a new... Yep, we've started a new... I'm only looking at the screen with us on it, so I can't even see what's being written or put.
Yeah, it's in the notes.
Right, okay.
It's also just below you on the screen, actually.
Oh, okay. I got my eyeglasses on, so I could just peer into the screen, and then I'll be joining you over there.
Perfect.
So looking at what we're doing at Supernal, we're doing a thing called Beyond Supernal, which is a series of interviews with Michael for Supernal, where I'm actually doing the hosting. And so you guys will be hearing about that soon. I've got a few other projects on the go. However, while they're exciting, I've got to hold back on talking about them. Okay. But I'm also putting together 2 new versions of workshops around sound meditation, blowing out of the water the need for mindfulness meditation completely. Not a fan of that term because it upsets too many people. But yeah, one around divining rods and pendulums, and one around meditation sounds for life.
Nice.
And so they're the 2 major things I'm working on. And and then Bridging Realms is people have got access to the books and what I'm doing and what I'm offering and that sort of stuff. I do readings online, Zoom, that sort of stuff. So I keep myself active. Like I said, I'm working harder now over 60 than I was previously. So it's all a bit of fun.
Awesome.
But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's been wonderful having you as well. Jen, what have you got going on this week?
Well, we have support group on Saturday. And, that's it for me.
Yeah, I have some podcasts coming out that are just shorts about Beyond Yoga. So it's Yoga Between the Breath, it's a new thing for me, so that's why I have to think about it. And it'll be coming out, fairly regularly over the next few weeks. They're just little short ones about that with Jacqueline Richards, as we're gearing up to the 200-hour yoga teacher training that we have. And stay tuned to the website. We've got new teachers coming on. We've got new classes being posted and all that stuff in the coming bit. So
that actually reminds me, I'd forgotten about it because I posted them a while back, but I have the series on human design and your nervous system. And so Monday, one of those will be coming out. So if you want to check out the blog on the webpage, you'll get to see that as well.
And that's on My Holistic Self. Or is it My Holistic Self Counseling?
Either one. You can do myholisticselfcounseling.com or myholisticself.com. It'll bring you to the same place.
Perfect.
Well, it sounds like you're both going to be very busy.
We tend to be, yes.
Well, there's an old expression, no rest for the wicked. So what does that tell you?
Wonderfully wicked we are, yes.
Yeah, well, my response to that is, I'm wickedly good.
There we go. Very good. If you don't mind staying on after, Anthony, actually, I have something I'd like to talk to you about as well. So
no problems at all.
At this point, we will say thank you all for joining us and sharing your beautiful energy. And we appreciate all the wonderful stories, Anthony, and sharing your energy and experience. And we look forward to working with you again in other capacities, or having you on the show again, as we are all involved in Beyond Being Human. So that becomes
absolutely.
A connector point. So welcome and thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.